Morning for Joe begins with the sharp electronic beep of his smart system, announcing the schedule of tasks awaiting him. Later, he heads to a bookstore where he meets a young woman named Ash. Their conversation begins with a discussion about one of the books, during which Ash invites Joe for coffee at a small cafe on the corner. Soon, their meetings become regular. One day, as the couple sits in the cafe, Ash suddenly confesses her love for Joe. She is about to say more when a stranger approaches their table. Seeing him, Ash's expression changes, but before she can react, the man pulls out a gun and shoots her in the head. Joe cradles her, feeling the warmth leave her body. Overwhelmed with rage, he chases after the killer, who disappears into the maze of narrow alleys as though vanishing into thin air. The police arrive at the scene but are powerless, unable to track down the murderer. The following 2 weeks become torture for Joe. He isolates himself in his apartment, avoiding all contact with the outside world. Only his friend Oliver, a newspaper vendor, manages to enter his apartment one day. Oliver brings Joe coffee, something Joe and Ash used to enjoy together, but Joe's hands tremble so much that the cup slips from his grasp. Silently, Oliver leaves. That same evening, Joe purchases a gun. Promising Ash a reunion soon, he presses the gun to his temple, but the trigger refuses to pull. Joe tries several more times, but the gun doesn't fire. When he points it at the couch, however, the bullet tears through the soft upholstery. Yet every time he aims the gun at himself, it doesn't work. In a fit of rage, Joe points the gun at the window. The shattered glass falls in fragments, and as he plummets downward, he suddenly feels like he's floating in the air. The AI assistant's beep pulls him from this strange flight. He opens his eyes in his bed, as if everything that happened was just a dream. The electronic assistant informs him that he has received a message from Ash. Joe rushes to the living room, where the gun lies on the table and the couch is entirely intact. In a panic, he runs out into the street, scrolling through the new messages. He suddenly senses something strange around him. The face of a woman passing by flickers, like an image on an old television screen. Messages from Ash arrive one after another. Joe decides to speak with Oliver. Oliver suggests a mundane explanation, pre-recorded messages sent in case something happened to Ash. Joe hesitates but finally opens the messages. In the recordings, Ash asks him to visit the bookstore and pick up an order placed in his name. Meanwhile, at an information center, a woman with 2 operators watches Joe as he reaches the bookstore and retrieves a small package. A book with a dedication from loving Ash on the first page. After reading the dedication, Joe suddenly feels a sharp headache. His vision blurs momentarily, but the symptoms quickly subside. He leaves, unaware he's being followed. One of the observers reports to the woman that Joe is holding something. She orders her team to eliminate him and retrieve the item. The operators activate a group tasked with pursuing Joe. He receives a warning message from Ash about the mortal danger he's in. He rushes back to his apartment, attempting to lock the door, but one of the attackers blocks it with his foot. Joe grabs his gun from the table and hides behind the couch. As the intruder approaches, Joe fires, but misses. Suddenly, his body starts moving on its own, and the next shot lands with precision. But then a second assailant appears in the hallway. Joe engages in hand-to-hand combat, his body once again moving independently, dodging blows. He manages to win, though he has no idea how. Suddenly, he sees Ash's face on the screen. Not a pre-recorded message, but a live feed. As he tries to process what's happening, the body of the man he shot seems to evaporate into thin air. Meanwhile, the living Ash explains to Joe that she never intended to leave him, but someone had hacked the system. Now she has something important to tell him. A few years ago, global technology began to develop at an unprecedented pace. Thanks to advanced behavioral modeling, artificial intelligence and self-learning machines were created. Most of these innovations were designed by a talented engineer named Hunter, though they were primarily developed for the entertainment industry. However, Hunter dreamed of merging the real and virtual worlds into a living entity, fueled by streams of information. Alone, this dream seemed impossible until one day he received a message from an anonymous programmer offering to help. Together, they created the first digital universe, DU, a system that lacked only real people with genuine emotions and desires. When the system went live, Hunter began using it for experiments ranging from risky surgical procedures to testing cutting-edge weapons. He soon became the CEO of Syntech Corporation, accelerating progress even further. Simulations of people were incredibly cost-effective, yielding results much faster than traditional methods. Moreover, these simulations were remarkably convincing. Over the course of a decade, Hunter tested hundreds of versions, so many that he stopped counting. As Ash explains this to Joe, he begins to understand that he is just one of nearly 500 realities created by Hunter. The revelation leaves him shaken as he realizes he is not a living person, but merely a digital construct. Yet Ash sees him as a human being she loves. She reveals that she herself is a real woman from the physical world, where Hunter's experiments on unsuspecting individuals had been outlawed. When this happened, Hunter concealed the original system within the digital universe. However, Ash managed to find an entrance and met Joe there. She shows him a photo of Hunter, and Joe recognizes him as Ash's killer. Ash explains that Hunter disappeared after her death, using his administrative privileges in a way that threatens the entire system. The more the laws of physics are violated in the code, the more unstable the system becomes. Looking at another photo, Joe is stunned to see Oliver among the images. Ash explains that Oliver has been missing in the real world for many years. Learning that he works as a newspaper vendor in the DU, she suggests that his kiosk might be a disguised surveillance post, providing access to the DU or serving as a communication hub. She pleads with Joe to ask Oliver for help, as her digital body is likely already restricted. Meanwhile, Erica, Hunter's assistant, visits him in his lab, where he is manipulating a strange, crystalline sphere. Erica reports the failure to eliminate Joe. She suggests that the only way to prevent further external interference is to fully isolate the DU from all global networks. This, however, would effectively shut down the simulation, instantly killing millions of virtual residents who, in Erica's view, deserve protection. Hunter, however, dismisses these concerns. He believes the risks posed by the DU far outweigh the potential losses. By studying the DU, he hopes to foresee and neutralize future threats to the real world. His grand plan involves controlling and correcting problems before they arise, even if it means sacrificing virtual lives. He brushes aside ethical arguments, describing the victims as nothing more than algorithmically generated entities. He orders Erica to locate the real Ash, who, at that very moment, receives an unexpected call from Oliver. Ash asks for his help in finding the DU's entrance and the key to it, some kind of special device or code that allows access to the simulation. Their conversation is abruptly cut short as an alarm signals the arrival of armed Syntech operatives, intent on stopping Ash. She narrowly escapes her apartment. Drones patrol the streets, monitoring every movement, but she manages to evade their surveillance. Tracing Oliver's last known call location, she finds his home. Cautiously, he lets her in, only after ensuring she is unarmed. Ash explains that after college, she spent 10 years as an analyst at Syntech. She became entangled in the events when she began to suspect something was amiss and discovered that the people in the DU were not just algorithms, but real individuals whose consciousness had been uploaded into the simulation. Oliver, hearing Ash's story and witnessing the depth of her feelings for Joe, decides to help. He realizes he's facing something far greater than a technological problem. It's a matter of life and death for real people trapped in a digital prison. He promises to use all his connections and knowledge to help Ash save Joe and potentially expose Syntech's crimes, thereby stopping their sinister plan to subjugate the real world through simulation. For now, he hides Ash in a hotel he owns and arranges for her to meet Joe. Hunter notices the intrusion into the DU and realizes Oliver has entered the game. Meanwhile, Ash once again confesses her love to Joe. She reveals that when Hunter killed her, he destroyed her access to the DU, a system she had spent months trying to locate. Joe is stunned by her confession, still grappling with the belief that his existence is unreal and illusory. He struggles to believe in his own reality as his perception of the world crumbles. Every movement, every sound, every emotion feels insubstantial, lacking genuine depth. Ash, trying to dispel his doubts, reassures him of his reality and kisses him. Suddenly, Ash is ripped out of the DU, returning to her real-world room with a sharp sense of danger. Oliver, an experienced programmer and one of the DU's original creators, explains that Hunter is monitoring them. Ash will need to hide from Hunter and his masked operatives, who have no qualms about using lethal force. Desperate, Joe turns to Oliver, who reveals a horrifying truth. Hunter can shut down the DU at any moment, obliterating the universe Joe considers his home. Hunter, unwilling to spend resources maintaining the existing DU, plans to create a new, more advanced simulation, leaving Joe and all his virtual friends in digital oblivion. The only chance for salvation is to find and upload the backup data of his system, allowing Joe to become real. Oliver tells Joe about the developer's room, a secret location in the DU where programmers left Easter eggs years ago. These hidden functions and backups allow changes to the universe's parameters, granting additional resources or enabling movement between locations. In the book Ash previously sent Joe, Oliver finds the backup for the entire DU and gives him the key to access the developer's room. Joe must locate it, upload the data, and transition from the virtual world to reality. Oliver promises to contact him with further instructions after this is done. Meanwhile, in the real world, Ash is in a desperate struggle for survival. She evades a masked operative, hiding behind a dumpster, and then, seizing an opportunity, attacks and disarms him. Ash tries to extract information about the DU's location from him, but the man refuses to talk. She manages to escape, but is soon captured by another of Hunter's agents. Ash wakes up tied to a chair in Hunter's luxurious office. She accuses him of destroying lives, manipulating people, and acting cruelly. Hunter dismisses her words with a derisive laugh, considering himself above morality and proclaiming himself a god in his digital universe. After tormenting her for a while, Hunter enters the DU, confronting Oliver face to face. Hunter admits he plans to eliminate his co-creator, stripping him of any remaining chance to save the DU's residents. At that moment, Hunter's men locate Oliver in the real world and open fire, disconnecting him from the virtual space. Meanwhile, Joe finds the developer's room and boots up an old computer. Touching the control panel, he instantly sends data into the network, triggering alarms at Syntech. Erica orders her team to stop him. Joe finishes the upload just as he spots enemies outside the window. Using the key, he opens a weapons cache and neutralizes them. Suddenly, he hears Hunter's voice and finds himself transported outside the city. Hunter shoots Joe in the shoulder, demonstrating his control. He begins tormenting Joe through the control panel, reveling in his power. However, when he mentions Ash, Joe's rage builds. Regaining control of himself, Joe shoots Hunter, sending him back into the real world, where Erica is trying to help Ash but is interrupted by Hunter. Hunter announces the reboot of the DU and allows Ash one last call with Joe as a cruel jest. Joe manages to express his love for Ash just as the world collapses around him. His phone disappears and everything is engulfed in darkness. After the deletion is complete, Hunter orders Ash's execution. However, the orb on his desk begins to vibrate, expanding before vanishing. On the screen, Oliver appears, explaining that there are other universes. Fragments of the sphere form Joe, who disarms a guard. Erica also refuses to serve Hunter any longer. Joe shoots Hunter, who falls out the window. Finally, Ash and Joe are reunited. Later, they meet Oliver, who explains that the universe is a system of levels. He transferred Joe's code into Ash's level. Oliver admits his mistakes but expresses renewed faith in humanity. Returning home, Oliver celebrates the favorable outcome with a drink and vanishes into a new level. After the release of The Matrix, the concept of humanity existing in a virtual reality inevitably feels derivative. To surpass its emotional and intellectual impact requires significant effort, something this story only partially achieves.